Now I know what you might be thinking. You might be asking yourself, Rabia, why didn't this video come out on the 1st of December? You know, how you always do every one of these. And that's for a very simple reason. We had some big things planned, baby! So, before we get into that, we're gonna go over the normal drops as always. Of course, what's poppin', people? We're gonna have some real fun with this video. If you've been enjoying the content, definitely go subscribe. I think this video is gonna be an absolute heater as we talk about the tier changes that NU just underwent, because wow. Wow! I mean, look at this! There's so much to discuss. We're gonna have a lot of fun. And let's just start talking about some drops. As always, I will simply highlight something that I found very, very funny, which was... Where was it? Where was it? Ah, yes. These two right here. I don't know why those spelled a PU. I ain't got no clue. But hey. Oh my lord, look at these NU shifts. It's so beautiful. I mean, when you talk about how power creep has really felt more impactful in these DLC generations, this shift is very... What's the word? It exemplifies that very well. Because the defensive level, it's not even really the offensive power level. Look at, a lot of these changes are defensive or utility mods. NU just got a nice shot in the arm of some extra bulk, and I feel like that was what we lacked a lot in the previous metagame, where there really wasn't a lot of deviating from common defensive cores. There were very few builds you could really go out and create. They didn't stick to the kind of same concept of like Chansey Lug, or Chansey Gligar, or Gligar Raja, or Raja like Avalug with a Gligar. Like, those same concepts were basically on every team. Florges being added, I really don't think did a ton. The most we saw was near the end of the tier. We at least got some Palisand popping up a little bit more, as Jolteon became more and more mandated to run its Terra Ghost set, particularly so you didn't have to Terra to hit Palisand, and of course that still let you dunk on Chansey. But now there's just so many options, I just gotta keep going through. We won't talk about Flamigo, of course, because it went to NUBL, but we will also talk about Flamigo, if you know, you know. Ambipom drops to NU. Joey is currently just... we got a nice little like fist bump going on right now. Bro is definitely excited about Ambipom. I view this as a pretty inconsequential drop. I mean, with Ambipom, the thing's gonna be with it. I think Terra Normal could be pretty good. We know offense has been consistently one of the best archetypes in NU, whether it's weather, whether it's just hazards, HO. Offense has been everywhere. You know, Jolteon, Scyther, these type mons everywhere. And so that fake out priority is gonna hit like crack. Beyond that, I don't really know if Ambipom's gonna be that good. I still have to look at its move pool too, because I don't know if it lost knockoff, for example, which would be kind of huge in a tier with Gligar, now Mudsdale, a tier with potentially some other steel types in the future as well. But I think it's a pretty cool option. Arcanine is kind of a hard one to gauge. Arcanine is kind of cool because right now we don't really have bulky water types outside of, say, Quillfish, which, you know, who knows if Quill is actually going to still be all that good, right? And I guess you could say Paldean, Aqua Tauros, that kind of counts as a bulky water type. But I think Arcanine could be in a really good spot, because unlike last gen, we don't really have a ton of just easy Flare Blitz switch-ins that are resistant. It's going to be some of those neutral mods. So again, to think about your Mudsdales of the world, your Gligars of the world, maybe you Terra with, say, I don't know, an Avalug. Otherwise, it's going to have a pretty good time. And I already have seen Eternally Theriumon a couple sets with it, making use of Terra Normal, so you can have a really, really strong extreme speed. Even Joey sent me some stuff with Arcanine because it does look pretty good. Also made me think about some theory modding for Entei because they do share quite a few moves. But I could see Arcanine being a pretty decent option. I think we'll also see the utility set creep up a little bit again. Arcanine retains really good defensive properties, especially with Intimidate. Very bulky. It doesn't really care about the loss of Toxic either because it has Will-O-Wisp still, so you still can spread status. Gonna be a potentially really good way of dissuading foes like, say, Paldean Tauros Blaze. Gonna help against Scyther. Gonna help against maybe some of the other drops too. I'd say Gallade, but honestly, I think Gallade's just gonna Swords Dance past you anyway. But it'll help out versus a couple of these other mons too. I'd say Decidueye Hisui, but he has Scrappy, so we'll settle for regular Decidueye. an offensive A, like we said. It could be pretty decent with Terra. I think it learns Howl too, which is pretty cool. Braviary Hisui, that mod sounds very, very frightening. It's got Tinted Lens, it's got boosting moves, it has Esper Wing, so it can boost its speed as well. Very frightening Pokemon. Now, I don't know if it'll be broken off the bat. I feel like it's going to be a mon that probably won't be. If you want to do the speed boost stuff, of course, you're going to have to take multiple turns to really become all that threatening. And the Pokemon isn't super fast either. I think it's base 70. I think it's actually slower than regular Braviary. So you're open up. You're actually open to quite a lot of revenge killing, especially with all the new mons we got too. I mean, you didn't get a lot of revenge killers here that are like typing-wise putting you down, but it is just kind of exemplifying the power increase. I mean, funny enough, one of the revenge killers is Shiftry. Shiftry also kind of walls the mon, because you don't care about Hurricane, you don't care about Heat Wave because of Wind Rider. Obviously, you're immune to Psychic. I don't even know if Air Slash hits you. I don't remember if that counts as a wind move or not. But if it does, hey, you wall that too. And you got something like Grafaiai with Prankster Encore. Pretty cool all around. Definitely, though, is a mon that I'm going to be on the lookout for. It could enable HO a lot. And we also get Hisui Decidueye. And I'm kind of interested in that for defensive sets, because it gets Defog. Got some really good bulk. It also has a generally decent hazard matchup, because you beat up on a lot of the ground types quite effectively. Something like Gligar with Toxic will still be annoying, but the mon gets Knock, so that's going to be really helpful for dealing with Gligar. It doesn't really want to trade with you, because losing its Eviolite could be a death sentence, and if you pair it with a Cleric, in this case it is Chansey, there's nothing else, that could be pretty bad. You know, you trade Toxic to lose your Eviolite, and they still cleanse the Toxic later. It's like nothing happened on your end, except you got the short end to stick. SD will also be really cool, though. Of course, it gets Trailblaze, so you got that speed boost. It's got triple arrows, the move with like 57 secondary effects, so that'll be cool. I don't know how these two Decidueye forms will interact in terms of which one will be better. I think that's going to be interesting to look out for. Presumably, right, Hisui will be better, because it's been tiered more highly the entire time. I could see that still being true. I don't really see what would help out regular Decidueye over Hisui in this instance. I guess having priority is certainly a big ticker. Shadow Sneak's really, really good. At least it has been in previous metagames. And so it means you don't have to take turns, you know, using Trailblaze to boost your speed. It's going to be kind of tough to figure out. I think we'll see, though, a nice diversity of set from Hisui to Sin. I'm excited. Dipplin is most certainly going to be bad, in large part because its move pool has like 5 useful moves. However, I will be using Dipplin because it's one of my favorite Pokemon. And I mean, look, I used it in OU and it was fun. Surely it'll be at least okay. I really don't think it's going to be very good, in large part because we got big Wo-Chien as well, which, God, we're going to talk about, but why the hell's Wo-Chien and Inu? Disregarding that for now. I don't think Dipplin will be very good, but having a mon that can switch into knockoff is always appreciated, as well as Trick. Sticky Holt's a really cool ability. And, I mean, Dipplin is at least one of the better Eviolite users. So that's something. Helps too that the mod's actually strong. It doesn't have like base 100-ish special attack. That is plenty serviceable. I will find a use for this mon, alright? But, I mean, realistically, completely hard-walled by steals unless you Terra is not the best. I mean, you have Leech Seed as well, so it's hard-walled versus, you know, generally walled. You choose how you want to phrase it. It's not a great matchup either way. However, like I said, I think Wo-Chien will probably take most of the viability, but I'll still try Dipplin. Glade looks to be one of the strongest mons we have in the tier, and definitely something I can see getting banned. And obviously these are like, I'm calling them day one thoughts because I've not tried building at all yet because of things we'll talk about later. The thing with Glade, right? Sharpness is such a huge buff because you got moves like Sacred Sword and Psycho Cut. Psycho Cut, generally in the past, have been considered maybe a side grade or a slight downgrade to Zen Headbutt. Zen Headbutt being a bit stronger and can make your opponent flinch, but of course the miss chance was always what set people a little off. Now it's just better because it's stronger. And Sacred Sword's huge because of Mudstone. So Mudsdale normally would be a check, potentially at least. I honestly don't know how well it takes a +2 CC, but you probably get one shot back by EQ. But now Mudsdale doesn't care, or you don't care about Mudsdale, because if they try to switch into your Sacred Sword, well, that move ignores defense boosts. So you're going to be able to break past that real easily. And with Sharpness, I honestly don't even think Gallade needs to go with an attack, or not an attack raising, a power boosting item. So you can afford boots, so you get more sustain. And you have Shadow Sneak with Terra Ghost potentially. It's kind of working like Gen 7, how this was a Rabia set for sure. I ran a lot of Ghostium Z Gallade with Shadow Sneak, because Neverending Nightmare was a cool way to break through foes like Palisand and Xatu that would typically try to check your Gallades. I mean, now, obviously, Shadow Sneak, it's different because it's not getting a huge power boost, but it's still an angle you can take, which I think is pretty cool. Definitely going to give it some use. Grafaiai is like the ultimate screw you to offense mon. It's like Sableye if Sableye was even better. So I think people are going to really enjoy the Grafaiai drop, especially because you think about a lot of the mons that we got, Grafaiai can shut them down. So you think about Braviary Hisui, Decid Hisui, Gallade potentially even. Let's look at some of these others. I mean, you could talk about like weather stuff, I guess. You could shut down a Sylveon even, because you can Encore it into Calm Mind. If they try to boost first. I don't know why the hell they try to boost first. You're a poison type, they're a fairy, but maybe they predict the switch. You know? Things like that. You can Terra Dark on some stuff too, like Braviary Hisui if you need to. It's just a very cool all-around mon. It's got some unburdened stuff too that you could do with Sword Stance Acrobatics. I think that'll be really exciting to use. I'm pretty hyped for him. Also just a nice fast pivot. And as you know, NU loves its fast pivots. Electrode, Rotom Mow back in previous gens, Ground Valley in previous gens, Jolteon this gen. It's going to have a good spot here. Mudsdale dropped, and what's really funny is I'm not actually convinced that it'll be better than Gligar. I'm not. I might be proven wrong pretty quickly, but the way I see it is this. Gligar's defensive profile is probably about as good, if not maybe a tad better. Like, at worst, Gligar is slightly not as good as Mudsdale defensively. And that's only if you're trying to factor in things like, okay, well, item displacement is real. Gligar has a couple, not a couple, but it has a quad weakness that can be targeted really, really easily. But I think the utility move pool is so much better. The bulk is actually higher when you factor into Violite. Obviously, Mudsdale's stamina, so you have to take that into account too, but oftentimes it's like, a lot of the mons are still... I don't feel like stamina actually changes a lot of the calcs. Maybe if you Terra it will, but you have to bust your Terra defensively. That's really easy to exploit. It's going to be a very interesting thing to watch for. Because Gligar having things like Spikes, U-Turn, Knockoff, even Toxic, if you want to mention that, those are very real benefits. Like, very huge advantages. The Poison immunity as well is another big one too, because Toxic is always going to be something you have to watch out for when you're a big horse. But I think what's probably the biggest thing to look out for too is the fact Mudsdale doesn't have Toxic itself. You know, we talk about Gligar having it, Mudsdale doesn't have it. And that can be bad because Mudsdale, it's a strong mon, but it's still kind of easy to wall. If that makes sense? Like, if you're running defensive Mudsdale, you kind of want Toxic, but you can't anymore. So, that could be kind of detrimental. We'll see. Ninetales drops, and this is where... I don't know how much longer I can keep referencing it. Yeah, here you go. There's a screenshot. We'll talk about those later. But Ninetales drops, obviously Sun becomes real. We banned Vulpix, we got Ninetales though now. Yeah, we'll talk about that. But Ninetales gives Sun auto setter. That is in itself huge. You could also have Ninetales be its own little wall breaker with Drought, Nasty Plot stuff. It's very, very potent. Really all I can say about that. I mean, this is a tier without bulky water types. You have mons that are especially defensive and can tear into a water type, but you don't really have the natural ones. So that's going to be really big for Pokemon like maybe Charizard, Brute Bonnet, maybe Screamtail, although that mon's not really a wall breaker at all, so I don't think it benefits. Paldean Tauros, though, Victory Bell. You got a Shiftry, too. Shiftry's a big one. Got a lot of dudes that benefit from that Ninetales drop. Now we get Screamtail. I mean, you want to talk about... I can talk about Screamtail and Wo-Chien here at once, because these two mons take the defensive power level of NU and they turn it to Wumbo. These are far bulkier than anything else we have in the tier on a mixed basis. So like Chansey is far bulkier than anything like else basically in the game on the special side, and in Avalugg does it on the physical side. Wo-Chien and Screamtail are just overall fat. They don't take much damage from really anything. And with both of these ones too, you've got so much utility, so much just general disruption. I mean, oh my god. Wo-Chien has moves like Knock, Leech Seed, Stun Spore, Ruination, like the ultimate progress maker. Meanwhile, Screamtail's got Wish Pass, it's got Encore, it's got T-Wave, it's just got a lot to make your life hell. Encore being a big one too, because Screamtail for some reason has 11 base speed. So it's faster than just about everything too, and just denies you any sort of reprieve from the suffering that it inflicts. And of course it's a really good option too for being a fairy type. That's just always kind of helpful, although with this tier shift we really don't have a lack of fairy types anymore. It's very fun. But it's going to be great for checking Pokemon like Goodra, checking any special attacker really at all, even Pokemon like Meloetta. Gonna probably struggle to break through a Screamtail. I'm scared, and Wo-Chien kind of doing the same overall too, because you got now a great switch into ground types, you got a Bruxish counter, you got to check to something like Mismagius, because even with like Terra Fairy stuff, I don't think Missy is matching up super well into the Woe. Terra, you probably even check things like Spec Sylveon, Spec Florges pretty well, you know? So I'm definitely very excited. Shiftry, I mean, Sun Demon. And that's really about it, but Sun Demon. And Wind Rider should be pretty fun too. Especially with Tornadus now being back. You should be able to really make use of Wind Rider. We already talked to earlier about checking Braviary with it, which is going to be pretty cool. Sylveon, probably a little bit better than Florges. It's a better Wish Passer. It's stronger too. So setups might be better. I mean, Florges was already incredible last shift, and somehow we added an upgrade, which I find really incredible. The bulk, I think, I'm trying to remember if special bulk, is it actually better or worse? Physical bulk, I know, is better on Sylveon than Florg. Because Sylveon's like 95-65, I think, on physical defense. Florg is like 70-something, 70-something. So Sylveon's going to take some stray, like, Earthquakes better if you have to use it as a CC switch, and it does that a little bit better. But I want to say Florges' special bulk might be higher. Sylveon's like 95-130. Florg is 73-ish. I want to say it's like 150 or something. Its special bulk is stupid high. Regardless, Sylveon is, I believe, just straight up an upgrade. In most ways. Not having Trick is real, and being slower too, because Scarf Florges is a cool set. And Sylveon can't really replicate that. And Sylveon's going to be still a improved defensive presence. And somehow even a better setup sweeper, which is an intimidating thought. The real difference for where Florges might have a little bit more benefit, you could talk about Terra Grass with Flower Veil. And that kind of gives you a little bit of a boost on the Mono Moonblast sets, particularly when you're employing Synthesis. Because yeah, I mean, not having to care about status is really cool. And also, on the topic of Synthesis, having auto recovery is really good. Not having to do wish protect stuff. It just gives you fewer turns to be exploited. So there might be a little bit of interaction there where you still want to try and justify Florges, and even the speed kind of comes into that because maybe Florges wants to have a little bit of speed. You can EV for something a little more effectively with Florg. Paldean Aqua Tauros dropping, this shocked me. I'm very scared of him, but it's going to be a really nice drop too. I mean, this one helps check Blaze Tauros. It gives us an even better check to Salazzle because you've got Aqua Jet, so Choice Band stuff could be even more justifiable. With Poros, Band is really good, but I definitely feel like you feel the speed tier stuff. Aqua Tauros won't as much, and I think what I'm most interested in is how this will interact with Bruxish viability. I don't remember if Paldean Tauros has Flip Turn. I want to check that actually real quick. Because Flip Turn make or breaks a lot. Okay, looks like we have dodged the timeline where this mon got Flip Turn, which is definitely for the best. Because I think Bruxish will probably retain some viability at least. through having Flip Turn. You could do Scarf stuff more, but I think Paldean Tauros Aqua actually takes a lot of Bruxish's usefulness away. Because, yeah, I mean, you're a better breaker. At least I think you are. You're... maybe... I don't know, though. I'm gonna just say I'm very interested to see how they match up. I mean, really, again, it's the bulk, right? You're a lot bulkier. You've got Intimidate. You're a little faster. So, like, in terms of choice band, or even setup stuff, I think you probably defer to Aqua Tauros. Scarf is gonna be where I'm interested to see how that matches up, because I think there's still noted benefits to using Brux. Toad's Cruel, I think this mod's actually kind of ass, because Mycelium Might is just so bad. And since we got Serena back too, I don't really think you need to use Toad's Cruel. I mean, you would... the theory behind Toad's Cruel being a nice drop would be that it is a spinner, but Serena's going to be a better spinner. And we also got Wo-Chien back. Or not back. We got Wo-Chien. So, defensive grass type doesn't really do anything. You know, it's a ground type, but that doesn't really do anything either, because we got Muds, we still have Gligar, we have Palisand still. It still has a lot of good utility, mind you, but... that ability is just so bad. Because Toad Scroll has actually really good speed. You want to make use of that somehow, but you literally can't when you're using these dumb utility moves. Mew Spore up, haha, I have to move last. It's just very sad. Like I said, Serena, I mean, it's back for spinning, and that's going to be really good. Spikes have been super prevalent, and, you know, hazard control's not been very, very good this entire gen. Serena gives you another option, and similarly to Gligar, you get that knock U-turn combo, which will be very, very good. Umbreon drops back. I think it kind of sucks for it that it dropped back in the same shift as Sylveon, but Umbreon will be pretty appreciated. Should help dissuade some stuff done by Hisui Braviary. I mean, mostly I'm a little bit concerned about how it does, what it does for Stall. Stall got so many good buffs. My god. Screamtail, Wo-Chien, Sylve, Umbreon you could use. Still have Chance, you still have Table. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. But I think Umbreon should be a good buff to the tier. I mean, we look at over here real quick. I don't even have Vulpix listed here, but don't worry, it should be. What if I refresh this page? There we go. Umbreon checking some of these mods here is going to be really useful, especially with Protect. It's got a Flamingo. Delphox, I guess you technically check. Oricorio Sensu, you know, disregarding Terra stuff. Meloetta, technically Inteleon. Pending Terra, pending H-Pump Miss. Stuff like that. And we can talk about some of the stuff that dropped or rose into NU. Abomasnow, I mean, this is probably because of Snow. Although I am a little surprised because I didn't think Snow got used too much on ladder. And in Chansey Rising into NU, we've seen it through all of SCL. So this shocks nobody. And then dropping out of NU, I'm actually super shocked Electros did. I thought Ladder loved this mon, but I guess it really has finally been phased entirely out of the tier. The once almost viewed as ban-worthy Electros, now not even being in NU, feels very, very weird. But you know what? It defined an entire metagame, and I find that pretty cool. Floatzel drops. Rain just, I guess, didn't really get prevalent enough on ladder, and that's really the only spot you see Floatzel. Froslash drops, because, yeah, it's worse than Lycanroc. Mesprit drops because ladder just doesn't use Mesprit, even though it's really, really good. And we also have the drop of Palisand, which is another funny one because it actually started getting a ton of Tor usage. Again, helps check your Jolteons if you're not running the Shadow Ball set, or if you're not willing to Terra Ice. Also check some of the annoying fighting types in the tier, like Toxicroak and Paldean Tauros. And now to this thing that I can show y'all. After I, already showed you, but hadn't showed you. You know what I mean, We voted on literally everything on NUBL. Not the stuff that was maybe in RU or RUBL, maybe UU. Because there were some Pokemon that are technically gonna drop back to NUBL, but we don't know what they are at the moment. We also can't, there's no reason to vote on them if they're not going to be dropped back to NU. So we looked at what's currently listed as NUBL, we did a whole council slate. You'll notice Vulpix is not in here. That was a mistake, but everyone voted to unban it anyway, except for this guy right here. And this is the result. I mean, we basically unbanned everything. Which, honestly, I think makes a lot of sense. This shift is very defensive Pokemon focused and utility Pokemon focused. It's not like we didn't get offensive mons, but I think the way a lot of us approached it was the defensive makeup of NU completely shifted, and as a result, it makes a lot of sense to reevaluate all of these mods. So everything except Titan and Dreadnought has been freed from NUBL. And I think this was a good choice. Now, a lot of us did vote under the pretense of some of these mons are still going to be OP. We all kind of acknowledge that. Like Tornadus, there's a very good chance Tornadus is still broken. Venomoth even. I think there's a real chance Venomoth is still broken. Sun. I mean, Drought. I mean, we have Ninetales now too, so Vulpix Unbanned was literally just because we have Ninetales in the tier. Vulpix is not better than Ninetales. But we kind of just said, hey, let's have some chaos. And we're going to unban everything in January anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Brute Bonnet comes back. Having Auto Sun with Brute Bonnet now for a bit longer, because remember, we banned Vulpix within a matter of days because SCL hosts didn't want to extend the week at all. So, Brute Bonnet being, you know, the whole idea was maybe it's a little too scary, we wanted to play it safe. We weren't going to get the extra time. We decided, whatever. We could revisit it later on. We're going to revisit it later on. It's no big deal. Brute Bonnet also, you know, not only has Sun, but it, if you all remember, just throw a pair of boots on it. 3 attacks, Spore, Seed Bomb, Sucker Punch, Crunch with Terra Dark. That set probably will still be really good. I'm just so happy to have a strong Sucker Punch back. Oh my god, it feels so good. Delphox. I honestly kind of feel like Delphox maybe was banned a little bit preemptively. Prematurely, that's the word. A little bit too premature of a ban, although I voted to ban it at the time as well. I think maybe it's good to give it a second shot, because at the end of the day, it's not like the mon's bulk is particularly good, especially on the physical side, and you got a lot of physical Scarfers that can dispatch it. So I think it's going to be a nice addition. Nasty Plot will be a great wall breaker still. I think we stand to gain a lot from having it around. Flamigo, hey, Scarf, CB, both are great. And I will say, I don't really know how well we check Flamigo. But I mean, we got Mudsdale around. That is definitely a Flamigo check. Something like Wo-Chien probably checks it if you Terra. You know. We got Gligar, probably checks it. Avalugg, Utera, that definitely checks it. I'm happy to try it out. I mean, it's a wall breaker that does kind of KO itself if it spams Brave Bird. Of course, it has scrappy close combat, but hey. Just make it use Brave Bird, dummy. Come on now. Frostmoth, I thought this mon actually deserved a suspect test. When we did the Jolteon test, I actually was pushing for a Frostmoth unban test instead. So I think this is a good unban, for sure. And there's a few reasons I'll reiterate them real quick. One, the speed. This mon has a base speed of 65. So with a timid nature, you're at 251 with max investment, and you go up to 376 with a quiver. There are mons that are unboosted outspeeding you at 376. Now you might say, okay, but they're special attackers. Fair. There are Scarfers outspeeding you by a lot after a boost. I think Frostmoth's pool of Revenge Killers is quite open. As a result, if it gets a lot of boosts, yeah, that's scary. There's not, you know, among us two speed boosts. Yeah, I mean, it should be kind of hard to Revenge Kill. You shouldn't be giving it that many turns. But I think with Copperajah back, with Chansey in the tier, things like Wo-Chien, which can Terra and probably wall even when you boost, things like Sylveon that have options like Mystical Fire to try and mess with you. I believe there's some kind of... Actually, no, Sylveon doesn't have Mystical Fire anymore. I'm dumb. But it's got stuff like Calm Mind, and it can Psy-Shock you. So hit you on that weak defense. I mean, obviously, Ice Scales helps. But still boosting. Still going to be able to help out. Something like a Glowbro even could potentially be annoying if it's AV. Goodra's around, it could Terra, maybe bother you like that. Snorlax is unbanned. That's probably like the biggest. And, as with any setup sweeper, Grufii. And Screamtail even to some degree, although you are slower. So that one, you know, this is an instance where it's actually not as simple for the Screamer. Inteleon, this is a mon I think a lot of us are probably thinking might be a little much. I believe it's okay. And my thought process for Inteleon is this. Yeah, it's fast as hell and strong as hell. This Mon has the defenses of a piece of paper. So I don't think it's going to be hard to revenge kill at all, especially with the priority we have in the tier. Things like Brute Bonnet, Sucker Punch, Toxicroak still is around with Sucker Punch. You got things like, I mean, you could bring out like Ambipom, right, with Fake Out. Decidueye has its Shadow Sneak. I don't think this one has priority, but he could switch into Hydro Pump. Dipplin could switch into Hydro. Wo-Chien Hydro. You got a lot of Hydro switch-ins. Like, my gripe that I've had with some council is they talk about like needing water immunities to check Inteleon, and I read that and I'm just like, what the hell do you mean you need a water immunity? You can use resist still, friends. Now I think the worry that they have is non-choice. They're thinking to themselves, okay, what if it's like that Scopeland's crap? And they Hydro, but then they get Ice Beam the second turn. Well, now, Inteleon's not nearly as hard to switch around. It's probably not running U-turn either, if you're running non-choiced. Meaning that when it makes incorrect predictions, it's a lot more punishing. There's not as safe as a mid-ground as U-turn is. And there's a lot of give and take. I think revenge killing Inteleon's a little annoying, of course, because it's so contingent on having a Scarfer or like Jolteon / Hisui Electrode. However, I don't think that's necessarily an indictment on how balanced it could be. Like, I think, honestly, probably not Scopelands. Be like heavy duty boots as the set. It's not choiced. But even then, it's like, okay, you're a lot weaker. So, things like Chansey check you better, Snorlax check you better, Wo-Chien check you better, Assault Vest Glowbro check you better. You know, there's a long list. So there you go. A Meloetta. Hell, a Assault Vest Meloetta. There you go. This was a set that was getting some use in the meta that we had Melo back in a month or two ago. But Meloetta's back, and a lot of people do think it should be better balanced now with Wo-Chien coming in, Screamtail coming in, AV Glowbro. I mean, you could even mention him here, because he got Shell Sidearm to hit it. Snorlax is here. There's a lot more going on. Grafaiai. Obviously, Psychic moves will kill Grafaiai, but Terra Dark. Boom. Good addition, good addition. All the Oricorus are back. I'm worried still about Pom Pom. I think we don't really have anything that walls the initial stab even, let alone if it decides, hey, I want a Terra. You know, it always messes stuff up. But if it wants to go back to running that Sub-Roost Quiver set, I think that could be really scary. Because something like Gligar just will not be able to touch you really then. And the immediate stab attacks are just so good too if you want to do like 2 attacks. Meanwhile, regular Bale Oricorio should be fine. Sensu I think will be kind of scary. But in my mind, should be fine too. Glowbro I think is going to be cringe cheese. That should be banned, but I'm okay to give it a shot. Maybe the quick draw stuff's just not consistent enough to work. Maybe. Snorlax, I think honestly, this was another one where I think we did kind of ban it out of a sheer amount of safety. Because Snorlax barely got council banned originally. It was a 7 out of 10 vote, and you need exactly 7 out of 10 to council ban when you have 10 council people. So the margins were literally as thin as they could be, and I think with the tier only getting stronger, there's really not much reason to keep it banned. Yes, it's really hard to stop when it gets going. No one's going to deny that. I mean, the Mon is very bulky. Get a Curse Booster 2 under you. OHKOing it's not happening. Even 2-hit KOing it might not be happening. But I think we have enough around that dissuades it. You got Encore on a lot of prevalent Mons, so that's always going to be something it has to contend with. I don't know. Hazard pressure as well. Even this goes back to what we talked about, or at least what some people talked about, why they didn't vote to ban Snorlax back when we originally did on that council vote. They mentioned that a lot of it was because Snorlax doesn't feel like it actually sets up curses too well, since Hazard's pressured so well. And a lot of time you are hard switching it into an attack. So what often happens is Snorlax is forced to use rest kind of early, unless it is just good, you know, if it doesn't use rest, it's just going to get pressured way too much, take way too much damage. And so that can often cause it to not get turns to set up, because you have to keep using rest. And so yeah, Snorlax is still a great use as a just defensive switch into foes, but that's not why people thought it was broken. So I think it should be more manageable. A lot of it's just a matter if you pressure a mon like Snorlax offensively, that's how you limit it. It's better you try to prevent the setup to begin with. If you're so dead set on trying to stop a setup Snorlax, then it's going to skew how your perspective is of it. And now Tornadus. Some people are worried about Rain because Specs Tornadus doesn't really have switch-ins, especially if you're like Terra Flying. Hurricane kind of just 2-hit KOs everything. But I'm happy to check it out, or try it out, I mean. I think Tornadus is going to be a very scary guy, but it is what it is. I don't know if Manual Rain becomes OP with Tornadus or not. I will say, our flying resists are not particularly encouraging. But hey, maybe a Wo-Chien that Terras. Maybe a T-Wave Screamtail. You know, we aren't without options. Even things like just Assault Vest on Meloetta, that's helpful. You've got like Sucker Punch Brute Bonnet, that's going to do a million. Snorlax can take a hit. Assault Vest Glowbro can take a hit. And these are just things I'm naming right here. Toxtricity is back. Toxtricity is kind of a weird case because it is really, really stupid strong. It's just kind of got that middling speed tier issue and a lot of exploitable weaknesses. Especially the Pokemon that might be trying to check it. So like maybe a Snorlax is trying to check you. Earthquake's a pretty fair coverage booster on Lax. You know, you can talk about Assault Vest Meloetta. It's just gonna Psy Shock you, and it's so bulky you're not KOing it. Maybe people's gripe will be how it matches up versus a lot of the potential Volt Switch deniers. And I could see that, because outside of maybe specially defensive Gligar, I don't really think there's a lot in the way of Volt Switch deniers that are super comfortably taking on Tox. And Tox could do some Terra normal stuff with Boom Burst and probably beat up on Gligar pretty effectively too. So it's going to be kind of like Snorlax, where you try to just leverage your offensive pressure to prevent it for those safe turns of trying to wall break. You know, aggressive double switches are going to be your best bet, and just making sure you retain a faster mon in front of it. Venomoth Unbanned is definitely the one I think I'm most worried about. Tinted Lens with Quiver Dance is kind of hard to sell to me as like balanced, right? It also Sleep Powder, so you got like 3 things that are all combining to form potentially the most disgustingly OP mon ever. Again, we've got more just raw, bulky, specially defensive mons. You got like Chansey, Copperajah even. You know, take away Tinted Lens. It doesn't really matter. Copperajah still checks. Snorlax, a Terrid Wo-Chien. Maybe even a Terrid Sylveon. I even threw in Colossal as I mentioned. Fully expecting Colossal to not be very good after this shift, but it's a mon. It checks it. Technically. Yeah, we'll see. Goodra as well. Goodra's a big one because you can't be slept. Vulpix, again, we have Ninetales now. There's no reason to have Vulpix banned. Maybe Drought will be the ban eventually. And then Zoroark. I thought Zoroark probably shouldn't have been banned for many months now, so this is, if anything, in my eyes, a formality. A lot of the banned stuff around Zoroark was always revolving around, oh, it enables the fighting types too well, or, you know, maybe they say the fighting types enable Zoroark too well. Which, okay, ban the fighting types then, but people didn't like the illusion mind game with those mons. Especially because the defensive level of tier was so low that those mind games, if you lost the 50-50, were so much more punishing. Now, we have a much better defensive metagame, so maybe losing those turns isn't as bad. Maybe instead of being 2-hit KO'd, it's a 3-hit KO, and that actually gives you extra turns to work with. But yeah, so not only do y'all get a usage... Why was I going to say? I was going to say, you get a usage-based tier update. No, you get tier shifts. Not only do you get tier shifts, you also get some very fun unbans. I'm excited for this new tier. Let's see, who else is excited for this new tier? Ninja is, oh, look at that. Pokeslice is laughing. Yeah, I'd laugh too if I voted to only unban Zoroark, you absolute nincompoop. How dare you? Everyone in the comments, rag on this. Don't. If I see any of y'all harassing Pokeslice, I will call you bad things. Don't do it. But I hope y'all enjoyed. I'm excited for the new metagame. We got a month until... Okay, well, let me rephrase that. We got less than 2 weeks until DLC 2 is released. Which, that'll give us, like, this is some spoilers for new mons returning. I don't know how much any of y'all care if you're still watching, but, you know, tune out now if you don't want to hear about this. Rhydon, Porygon 2, and Duraludon. I believe all 3 of these are coming back in the DLC. So we get those automatically on DLC 2 release, because keep in mind, they're NFEs. Even Duraludon now, remember, it got an evolution, Archaludon. So those are 3 potentially very high impact drops. And then on January 1st, we have that quick shift they always do, where OU drops Pokemon that were just released into every tier. So that'll be a big metagame shift too. And in April of 2024 will be when the DLC 2 shift hits us. So we still have a lot of ways to go, but we're slowly approaching where we should have some tier stability. I hope y'all enjoyed this though. Leave a comment down below. Tell which Pokemon are, mini Pokemon are you most excited to try out. As oh boy, do I have plans. Catch you next time though. Peace.